Okay, there we go. We have pressed record on our camera, and I will not be making any cuts on this video. And it feels very weird because I don't have the screen. Actually, let me flip my phone down here. I don't have the screen facing me. I don't have my phone, so I won't be able to see what I look like. And I usually use that for a little bit of confidence to make sure I'm lined up, make sure I'm using the right gestures, make sure my posture is good, and that my Red Bull doesn't look tacky in my hand. But the point of this is to be very genuine. And this will be the first of what I hope to be many, many videos like this, where I'm just talking to the camera and being myself. And knowing that there won't be any edits gives me more confidence to just be relaxed and not perform or talk in a certain way that really sells it for the edit. So, one thing worth pointing out is my camera is not on its tripod. I don't think it's in frame, but I have a tripod sitting right here. And I don't know where the mount piece is. I may have left it at work. It might be in my car. I'm not sure. So I have a tall laundry hamper with a couple pillows and a book and the camera on top, which I find pretty comical. But that leads into what this video is about. And that is, you do not have to be perfect to start something, to do something, or to tell others about that thing. Now, recently, somebody commented, not actually commented on Instagram, but made a comment about my content. Again, I have 800 followers. I'm not a influencer. I never want to be labeled as that. But I enjoy making content for me and for the truth I can put out into the world. And somebody was making a comment about that, saying that when I give advice, I present it in this way that looks like I've learned something new, I've done something new, therefore everyone else has to now do that thing. And that I only speak in past tense, that I used to do said bad thing, or now I have recently started doing said good thing. And because of my recent change, now I'm going to talk about it and everyone else should conform. And truly, I don't believe that's how my content is designed or how I make content. But it got me thinking, a lot of people do see advice-based content in that way. They think, well, this person is coming across assuming that they are better than everyone who watches their content. They just want everyone to do what they're doing, or sometimes they don't want everyone else to do what they're doing because it gives them more moral high ground. And that's not who I want to be as a content creator or as a person in person, because I do believe the content I make, it genuinely is what I would say in person. It's just summarized into 60 seconds. So unfortunately, I can't always give every single angle to an issue I'm talking about. But back to the content, I think it's very important for people to know you don't have to be perfect at something in order to teach that to others or in order to, I guess, post about yourself doing it. For instance, I do not have an incredible physique, but I enjoy lifting a lot. I'm a big nerd when it comes to a little bit of the science-based lifting stuff. I also love the motivation mindset of just do it, work harder, push yourself, kind of the marriage of all those ideas. And I do not have a competitive bodybuilder physique. Excuse me. But I still post about working out. And I do know a lot because of the progress I've made. I have put on 45 pounds since going to the gym. And I will continue to share that with other people because it's something I'm passionate about. It's something that I'm excited about. But that does not mean that I have to have a perfect physique or at least a far greater physique than most people, or I don't have to reach the certain level of aesthetics that other people who are making content like mine have. I can speak something if it is true. And that is kind of the foundation of all of this. You need a solid foundation of truth that is not just based on your opinions or things that you've kind of made up. You need a solid external source of truth. And then, no matter how good you do it, you are able to share it with others and put that truth out there, and it remains true. Because if I was making up my own way of working out, right, and I was claiming that it led to an amazing physique and incredible strength gains, but I myself did not have a good physique and I was not strong, then I would have no credibility to go out and preach that to other people. I would pull out my phone, make a video, and upload it, and people would say, "This guy is ridiculous. You can see in the video he's scrawny. He's, 200 pounds, but he's also 6'5", so that's not that impressive, and his lifts are not even that heavy." So because I'm making up some truth and the only evidence that I would have for it is myself, I'm obviously not backing that up with evidence, and therefore other people don't have a reason to believe it. But then you take the other side of that, where you get your truth from a solid external source, I guess, which for me, I'll be very clear, is God's word and truth from God. If you go out and preach that, if you're not living out those truths as an example perfectly, there's still truth in what you're saying. You can't ruin the truth that is from God, because God has the evidence to back it up. He did send his son to die on the cross. He is all powerful. He is all loving. He is all just, all these things. And so if I make a bad example of that, it does not ruin his truth, right? He is the one backing up his own truth. And then I am purely a messenger telling that truth to the rest of the world. And I think the important caveat here is you can't use that as an excuse to poorly represent the truth that you're trying to share on purpose. So again, back to the physique gym examples. I can talk about science-based lifting. I could talk about, bro science of just lift heavy and all that, and not be perfect at it. But I am still working on those things, right? I do track my lifts. I do eat good food. I lift, not as heavy as a power lifter, but I do lift to challenge myself very much. I practice progressive overload, increasing the weight every week. And so I am trying to back it up. So although I may not look perfect, I'm trying to back it up. But it would not work if I was sharing Christian values and truths, or if I was telling people how they can work out or diet, or different mindsets they can have that will help them, and actively go against that with my actions. If I just sat on the couch eating chips all day and playing video games and didn't shower, never had read my Bible, don't go to church, all these things, it would be ridiculous for me to get online and try and share the truth of Jesus or the truth of health and wellness when I am living against it. So it's more about the direction you're heading, not how far you've made it in that direction, because I am not where I want to be. I don't think I ever will, because as I get better, I will want to set higher goals, but I am not where I want to be with gym, with my Bible reading, with my literal relationship with God, my earthly relationships. I'm not where I want to be because I have a very high standard, but I'm moving towards those standards. And so because I'm moving towards them, I'm happy to teach and preach, if you will. I don't consider people have different opinions on those terms, but share this truth because I'm headed in that direction. And other people are headed in that direction too. And so I would want to give them anything that is useful for them in that journey. I've been blessed with a lot of good information being given to me. The internet is an awesome resource, right? But it's not always the clearest, cleanest source of information. It gets really cluttered. So I've had some really godly people pour into my life. I have a coach who has given me programs, but mostly answers questions and helps teach me new concepts in coaching. My coach has been doing this for, 10 years. So that's awesome. As far as my spiritual life, I have a mentor who's a little older than me. I meet weekly if I can to dive into Bible reading and I do Bible reading in a different group, but the mentor meetings are more a recap and a touch base on how things are going in life. And then as far as the Bible study, that's, a once a week I have a men's group, which is great. They really pour into me. So again, I'm going in this direction with my goals, and I just want to take anything I've received from a men's group, a mentor, a coach, and pass that along to other people who are going in the same direction as me. And most importantly, I want to receive help and advice from people who are farther along than me. I will never turn down advice that is useful and helpful for my life just because I might want, in my pride and in my flesh, to see myself as farther along than them, or more advanced in whatever they're talking about. If someone has truth and it is biblical truth that aligns with God's word, then I'm not going to say no to that. And I think the closing thing for this video is there's a story in the Bible, and I'm going to be a little transparent here. Is I don't remember where it is in the Bible, so that shows that I need to work on my Bible reading and memorizing verses. But there's a story in the Bible that talks about there's a donkey who speaks to a man, and there's God speaking through the donkey. Balaam, I believe, is the name of the man, and shares God's truth through a donkey to speak to a man, right? And it's kind of this popular story that people will throw out. And they'll throw out that, oh, well, you might think this person is not being the best example, or that they are, I don't know, some reason why you should not take advice from them. And they say, yeah, but, God used a donkey to speak to Balaam, so you never know. And I believed basically what everyone else believed, which was, yeah, there can be bad people who happen to have some truth, and then you can still take that truth and separate it from the person. And I will say, yes, I still agree with that. But more importantly, what I realized from that story is that no matter who it's coming from, it was truth from God. Someone else didn't use a donkey to talk to Balaam. God was the one who was talking. So if we are diligent in reading the scripture and we can discern what is godly advice, and we know that it lines up with the scriptures, when we get godly truth said to us from a source that maybe is unexpected, maybe is a little contradictory, it is still God's truth, and we should not write it off just because it's not from the source we wanted. And also, we should try and be the best examples and sources of God's truth so that we don't create more friction between someone and the advice we're trying to give them. What I mean is, we don't want to be a donkey. We don't want to be a social media influencer who isn't a Christian but happens to say one Christian truth, and now you're confused, you're conflicted. Do I listen to that? But they're not of Christ. More importantly, let's develop our own character to be trustworthy sources so that when we share truth with other people, they're more apt to hear it and to listen because we actually live it out in our life. So the goal is not perfection, but you do need to have a clear direction so that people can look at your life and see, okay, that person is chasing godly goals. Therefore, when they share advice, I want to listen because we're both headed in the same direction. And also, be willing to receive advice because none of us are perfect and ever will be on this earth. So anything you can take to become a better version of yourself, sacrifice your ego, your pride, and just try and take that advice and actually apply it to your life. And I believe that you will see a difference. So that was this episode. Honestly, that was really smooth. I'll kind of do a little break the fourth wall here. I have never done one of these sit down talking videos for this long. I usually, in the past, will lift, film the process of going to the gym, and then talk for 5 minutes afterwards. I think that's okay, but I think I'd like to keep those separate. I love the cinematics of the gym, and I love talking to people about things, and I can't summarize most of my thoughts in a 60-second video. So I would like to upload these to YouTube, hopefully weekly, clip them, put some clips on my Instagram. I think that would be awesome. Be able to share little snippets of advice. And it helps me get my thoughts out because once I usually get the ball rolling, it's a lot easier to keep going and my thoughts become more concise, as opposed to trying to communicate an idea that just popped into my head when I pull out my phone right then and there. It's sometimes hard to put it into just a few words. So hopefully you watched all the way through. Thank you. That's awesome. I'm going to link 2 podcasts that you should listen to because, of course, I want you to listen to these little talks, but I'm trying to give you all free games. So Higher Up Podcast by Michael Smoke, also known as Higher Up Wellness on Instagram, and the Crew Mahoney podcast. Crew Mahoney is his name on Instagram as well. I highly recommend you listen to those. I will say that Higher Up Podcast is a mixture of physical training, mentality, and I will say diet and nutrition coaching in the least dry way possible. We've all probably heard podcasts that really make it boring and really make it so science heavy it's hard to listen to without feeling like you're reading a textbook. But his podcast is very digestible, pun intended, because he talks about nutrition, and has really impacted my life. I feel like this whole season of life I'm in sparked from many long marathons of episodes of that podcast. So highly recommend that one. The Crew Mahoney podcast is if you are looking for straight up truth that is not sugar coated, and if you apply to your life will really change your life, that is the podcast for you. This guy gets up at 5 a.m. every single day, runs a mile every day, does a cold plunge every day, never misses it. And if you want to develop discipline like that, which I'm working on and not perfect at, like we just said for the last, 20 or so minutes, then that would be a good podcast for you. That's all I have for today. Shout out to Red Bull for not being a sponsor. I just drank this for the first time today. I don't know if I've ever had Red Bull, but I wanted to try also this new cherry sakura. Oh, I butchered that. Wanted to try this spring flavor out. It's not as good as Ghost, I'm not going to lie. But who knows? Maybe I'll talk highly of them so they'll sponsor me one day. But that's all I have. And thank you guys for listening. And I'm not going to say I'll see you in the next one because I think that's a bit of an overused closing phrase. How about this? God bless you, and I'll be praying for you.